So we're looking at a flat roof, a pitched and gable-ended roof. That's one of our most common types of roof. A pitched hip-ended roof where the roof slants back, and a mansard roof as well. If you look around the streets where they're a bit more built up, a lot of the apartment blocks have these mansard roofs. So into SketchUp, remember you're working in the SketchUp app. Now before I start, you can see the model I've made here before. Let's just look at how we can delete things. So I have this eraser tool here, and I can click directly on a line and I can delete. I can actually just, I'm holding the mouse button down, I can scribble all over the place and delete. But what you tend to find is you end up with all these bits and it takes forever. So the easiest way if you want to do a sort of group delete, get rid of a lot of stuff, is to use the select tool, and then I'm just pressing delete on the keyboard, not backspace, delete. Unless you're on a Mac, then it's just backspace. Okay, so 4 different types of roof. I'm going to start by creating a rectangle on the ground. Don't worry too much about what size it is, because of course you can just play around with it afterwards. Okay, so my first one, a flat roof. Now if you imagine, if you're in the workshop, picture this as you've been given a block of wood and asked to turn it into different shapes. You can either add more wood to that block, or you can cut wood away from that block to create a different shape. In the examples I'm going to give here, I'm going to use the example of taking stuff away, but there are ways where we can add it as well. So I've gone here to the line tool. You can see I've got a straight line and a squiggly line. I'm going to go with a straight line. I'm going to make sure I click on that end point, and I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to put a slope on this. Remember, we do not want perfectly flat roofs because they will pool with water and they will leak. So we need a slight slope on any flat roof. Back to my rectangle tool and out with my next shape. So my next house, I'm going to make this a bit longer this time, just so it's a bit more in proportion. Okay, so I'm going to use the orbit tool to orbit around. I'm going to look at this from the front. That's a little bit low for my liking, so just use the push-pull tool to extrude that up a bit. Back to the line tool now. One of the great things you'll notice as I hover around here, it snaps to this midpoint. So from the midpoint, come down, choose the pitch of your roof, draw one line. Now, if you notice, if I hover in the sort of right place, this dotted sort of guideline comes up as well. So I know then that those 2 points are level, and I know that that's the center. Back to the push-pull tool, and I can get rid of this side, and I can get rid of this side. Now I can also give it an overhang as well. Remember, buildings need overhangs, otherwise the walls are going to start leaking. The rain needs... We don't want the rain running down the wall. We want it to go over the overhang into a gutter and nicely away with the rest of our storm water. Okay, so there is a pitched roof. It's a pointed roof and it's gable-ended. These are one of the nice easy ones to construct when we're building them, because we just have one shape of roof truss that goes the whole way along, and we can just carry on our brick or block work to the top here. But sometimes the planning authorities say, no, we want something that doesn't look as imposing. So if that's the case, we may well look at doing a hip-ended roof. So this time I'm going to push this shape up, try and get it roughly the same height. Same thing, I'm going to start by creating a pitched roof. So straight line tool, and then my push-pull tool to get rid of those. And if you notice, I'm pushing it till it gets to this little offset option. Now, I need to add a line across here. Now, there's 2 ways we can do this. I'm going to orbit from above. Now, if I draw, pick a point about here, draw a line, try and make sure your line's going 2 definite points. Go to the eraser tool, and if I delete this line, and this line, it's just filled in the gap like that, so I can see my roof like that. And just to make the point, what we're looking at here is if we're walking along a street, hip-ended roofs look less imposing. They're very hard to build loft conversions in. You don't get quite the space, and also storage. And they're a lot more complex to cut in terms of the rafters as well. Okay, so another much simpler way to do this. I've drawn my line across here because I want to not have this wall move. And I'm going to use the move tool this time. So under here, this tool here, move, and I'm just going to grab this. I've just clicked it once, and I can just slide that along there. Orbit around, you can take the time to get those balanced, and of course, we want some overhangs. You find overhangs vary as you go around the country in terms of how much the overhang is. Go to the countryside, look at a farmhouse, you'll have a much smaller overhang than you have in the town. Okay, now, if we were drawing an apartment, so let me start with a rectangle here. Let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, so apartment blocks, where essentially we've got a flat roof, but because we're building our rooms into that flat roof, we're going to call it a mansard roof. This is something that was developed in Paris, so see a lot of them if you ever go over there. Now, I am going to use this tool here, which is the offset tool, so this will copy any shape. So, you see these two red dots have appeared. I'm going to click, and I'm moving towards the red dot. If I move away from it, I'll create a different shape. So move towards it and create a rectangle at the top. I'm then going to take a line. I'm going to put it all the way around the building. So I'm going to go from here to here. Now, I will just do it. I'll do the whole thing. So I'm going to orbit around to the other side. So I need to just make sure all these lines are level. Orbit around a bit. You might want to start learning the keyboard shortcuts for all of these tools as well. If you can learn them, it'll speed it up a lot. I don't want to use them at the moment because I want you to see where I'm clicking. Now I've joined the line there. I didn't actually want to delete these lines first. I'm going to delete this line. You can see the line I drew there. And you can guess what you've got to do next. As I put the line in here, it will close that face. Oh, something's not quite joined up. And we can create our mansard roof. For some reason mine isn't working. There we go. Sometimes it's just a quirk, you have to go over the lines twice. Sometimes you find if you were just ever so slightly off of one of those, if there's the tiniest gap in one of these lines, it's not a complete surface. Imagine it like a balloon or something like that, a bucket holding water. It only needs the tiniest little hole in it and that colour's going to leak out. A lot of the time when you get that situation, you're better off going a few steps back and just starting again. So I've obviously got a hole, I think I can see it down here. So I can see that I've somehow, when I drew my lines around, they didn't quite join up because I was rushing there. Okay, so flat roof with a slight slope so the water drains off and we don't get leaks. A gable-ended pitched roof, most common way to build a house, or a detached house, or semi-detached house should I say. A hip-ended roof, a bit more complex when you come to building the roofing trusses. You have to build them yourself, you can't have them made to measure a lot of the time, so the carpenter has to work on site, but a lot less imposing. Planning authorities quite often insist you do something like this, and as you walk around Hammersmith and Putney, have a look up in the sky and you will notice quite a few of these mansard roofs, normally with some sort of dormer window coming out from them. Okay, see you again soon.